Welcome back to Joy of the Hang. I'm your host, Sharon Stevenson, and today's conversation is about baseball, joy, and belonging in its purest form. I'm joined today by Sharon Croker and Tanner Kim, the driving forces behind the League of Angels, the only undefeated baseball team on the planet. But this isn't about stats or scoreboards. Their mission is simple yet profound: to transform the lives of people with special needs through the joy of playing baseball. For many of their players, stepping onto the diamond isn't just a game, it's a dream come true, a chance to be cheered for, celebrated, and seen. League of Angels is proof that baseball and connection can change lives. So grab your glove and let's step onto the field with Sean and Tanner. Welcome, Sean and Tanner.
Thanks for having us.
How are you guys doing today?
Can't complain. Can't complain. That was an awesome intro. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So I'm going to start. Why don't we start with you, Tanner? Who was the originator of the idea? Was it you, Tanner?
It was. Well, you could say it was the Lord, but it was, he called me to steward it first.
Okay, I love that. So let's start at the beginning. How did it come to life?
Yeah, so July 16th of 2023, I was sitting in a church service over here at a local church called City Hills Church, and I had just left Kentucky playing baseball, was still looking for my calling, kind of what was next for me, and I was just sitting in that church service. It's one of those times you feel like the pastor's talking right to you, and he gave a message on picking up your sword. So he ultimately said there's a gift that God's given you, and it's time to pick up that gift or that sword and use it for something good, use it for him. And at that time I had laid down my sword, which was baseball. That was my God-given gift, you could say. And in just that little moment, a little voice in my head was like, you're going to start a baseball foundation for kids with special needs. And I have no connections with special needs individuals, was never a peer tutor in high school, no siblings. So it was really out of the blue, but it was something that I couldn't shake. And I was like, I have to do this, and I don't know why. So then I sat on it for about a week. That same little voice was like, you're going to call it the League of Angels. And then the rest is history.
So I'm curious, what does it feel like or mean to you when you say you have a calling or that same little voice? What's that nudge feel like for you?
Feels like intuition almost. It feels like something where you need to be obedient towards it, but you can't really pinpoint where it's coming from. I was in my faith, but I had a religion, not a relationship, you could say. And once that little voice popped in my head and that just feeling and urge, the more I dived into it, it was like, that's clearly the voice of the Lord calling me to something. And like I said, the League of Angels was a catalyst for my faith, just like I hope it is for a lot of other people who come to our experience. So I just kept diving down the rabbit hole to like, okay, this is what God's calling me to do.
And Sean, how did you get involved with Tanner and League of Angels?
Well, I was coming up upon my graduation year at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and I decided to go to a local church. I was sick of the online stuff, and I had been praying at the beginning of that year. I think it was right after New Year's, for Christian brothers. I had a bunch of friends, but I needed guys that could pour into me as well. And day one, I stepped into that church. I met Tanner and his whole family.
And then Tanner said, hey, I've got this great idea.
Yeah.
That was it. No, we were, I was part of some ministry stuff on campus, and Tanner said, hey, let's get some coffee. We spoke for about 3.5 hours later that week at a coffee shop, and ended up getting lunch together. And it just kind of became like a, hey, let's tag team this thing. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, and we just kind of get after it. And we always say that we thought this League of Angels thing was going to be a weekend gig. But I showed up at the first event just kind of as a glorified volunteer, fell in love with it. It was so easy to just jump in and kind of get involved, and you start throwing the ball with these angels and see the smiles on their faces to get you to come back. And I just asked them, say, hey, wherever you need me, I'm there. So just kind of kept coming back, and we started seeing some cool doors open together.
Yeah, let me just preface too, kudos to Sean for jumping in, because when he jumped in, we had no idea what we were doing. It was me, a couple buddies. I don't even know if we were even a registered C3 at that point. We were just going to a local park and seeing if this thing would grow legs, if you will. So now to see where it's grown to now, yeah, we're super blessed.
You guys, I'm getting chills talking to you already, and it's only been a couple of minutes, but I do want to tell our listeners that can't see us, is like I am talking to Tanner, who's 22, and Sean, who's 24. And I'm curious, what made you so driven by faith? I mean, I love that there's this youth movement now that's getting back to God. Were you brought up in the church? Were you like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, I know. I always claimed to be a Christian, but that looks a lot different to a lot of different people. So when the League of Angels was brought to the forefront of my mind, the Lord really used that as a catalyst for my faith. So, it was tough to be obedient in that beginning season, But once the doors started flying open and it started to become undeniable that God's hand was over the organization, not only did it grow the business, quote unquote, side of things, but it grew my faith. And the goal is to grow everyone else's faith. So I definitely was in my faith, but this made it grow tenfold.
Sean, how about you? You said you were looking for Christian brothers to help you connect and explain to me where that came from for you.
Yeah, it was the same thing. Grew up in a God-fearing home. My grew up south of DC. Dad was in the military. So coming out to school here, I got to figure out, whose God I was following, whether it was one of my parents or making my own. I'd say for so long I towed the line. I joined fraternity. I had a girlfriend. My identity were in both of those things. And then at the end of my junior year, those both kind of fell apart. Got kicked off campus, left the relationship. And I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, everything that I had my importance and my identity in is all gone. So who am I really? And then it just became, whose am I? So that was really my turning point to just say, I'm going all in for this Jesus guy. I always believed in him, but there was no relationship. So following the relationship is when doors open. I met Tanner Kim here. And I mean, the last 2 years have been a whirlwind where I joke, I don't know what the next 3 months look like following the Lord, because there's always something new and exciting, or pieces that have been pulled and worked together in the background for so long that when they come to the fruition, you're like, wow, there's no other explanation except for, Jesus having my best interest in mind. But when we go forward and we say we want to work for and with him and not just kind of praise him on our highs, life gets really exciting.
Yeah, no, we were.
Pray for him on our lows, right? All of a
That's
sudden.
right. That's right. That's what connected me and Sean so much at the beginning stage of the League of Angels, because I was playing ball at Kentucky, same kind of situation. Everything fell through, and I had all my identity in being an SEC ball player and a lot of worldly things. And so when I kind of fell on my butt, if you will, the Lord picked me back up and then put Sean in my life at the same time that he kind of fell on his butt. We're like, let's just link arms and do this thing together. And now here we are.
So I'm curious. I want to get back to League of Angels, but you're bringing up so much for me. I'm curious what you would tell other listeners who, especially young men and young women, who are in their early 20s and maybe everything has fallen apart and they're feeling helpless and hopeless. What would you tell that person?
It's a good question.
I would say, it seems like we're a hopeless generation, but we're also Generation Z is on the forefront of just wanting to do something that has meaning. And with all this AI and social media, it's like you don't really know what truth is. We believe in God the Father, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. And, when he speaks, his voice is truth and his word and the Bible is truth. And that's the only thing in a world of deception that we can believe on. So, it's kind of taken that. I like to tell some of our guys that Tanner and I disciple together that, it's an Indiana Jones movie, and I couldn't tell you the name of it, but he takes this leap of faith into a chasm, and there's like an invisible cross that becomes the bridge. And I'm like, man, if you just take that leap of faith and say, Lord, use me for who I'm meant to be, then he will,
Yeah, we tell people all the time that when it comes to what's next, the Lord takes all the weight off your shoulders, because if you really surrender your life to him, it's not your life anymore. So not only do you have to take control of it, but you also don't have to feel the burden of not knowing what's next. And so, going back to the League of Angels, that's kind of been the undeniable truth with it. With the whole start of it, I couldn't even tell you why we did it, because it was just something the Lord put on our heart. We tell people all the time, we don't want this to sound bad by any means, but me and Sean both don't necessarily have a true, like, just dying passion. We're born with it for special needs individuals. And, that's not something that was on the forefront of our mind. And it's like, he knows what you want before you even want it. Cause now that we're knee deep into this thing, we're like, man, we wouldn't want to be anywhere else or be hanging out with anybody else except this community that we've gone through. So, I think it's really special how the Lord can take you to places, even when at the time, if he would ask you, hey, Tanner, I'm going to take away, this X, Y, and Z and replace it with a special needs foundation, I would have said no quicker than he could have finished a sentence on it. But now that I'm in it, he knew exactly what me and Sean both wanted before we even knew it.
So I have a question. So Special Olympics already exists. So tell me why you decided to focus on baseball specifically. What is it about baseball?
The cliche answer is because that's what God wanted. But to dive a little bit deeper into why baseball is, we saw a bunch of different foundations and organizations with the elevator music and with the parent handheldness, if you will. And that is not a shot at any other organization. There's so many foundations doing amazing things. But with me not having, Sean included, not having a background in nonprofit work at all, we were like, the one thing we do know is that modern aspect. We're two young guys. We were in college at the time. Let's throw a big party for them. Let's throw a big event because they're just like the rest of us. So we decided to call it the League of Angels Experience because we're not just an event. We're not just a game. We're not just a league. We want to bring an experience. So we started throwing in the DJs and the fog machine and the spotlights and really made it like really an overstimulating environment, if you will. And people loved it because they hadn't really gotten that opportunity to. And I think the one downfall that some organizations have is they think of the philanthropy work as the standard, or I'm sorry, as the goal. The philanthropy work for us is the standard, right? That's going out and playing baseball with special needs individuals is our base. We want to shoot higher, and what can we add? How can we make them feel more special? How can we make fans feel more special? How can we get them in a college stadium? How can we get athletes involved? Like, there's a bunch of different ways to kind of jump forward past that base of, hey, we just want to play baseball with some special needs individuals.
I love it. That's awesome. So tell me can you share a story of your very first game and what that moment felt like for the players and fans?
Absolutely. Well, the short answer is we didn't have fans and we barely had any individuals there.
Okay, fair.
Sure. We got together at a local high school here, and man, we had about, I think the number was 13 Angels and I think 25 volunteers. We had a total of about 40 people there, a little less than 40. And to me, that was incredible because we had no plan. We just were like, we're going to go out here and have a blast. We're going to play some cool music. And it was nothing like it looked like today. But that first time, I'll never forget it being an eye-opening experience, not only for me, but our friends and family who were getting involved. And so when we were wrapping the event up, we're like, that was kind of cool. We didn't really know what we were doing, but there was two Angels specifically that one of them, we were like, hey, what was your favorite part as they were leaving? And they're like, I never thought I would get to be a baseball player for a day. And it kind of clicked in my head. And I'm like, wow, they really, this is impacting so much bigger than we thought, and Angels talking about how they never physically thought ever in their life they'd be able to hit a home run because they turn on the TV and they see all these awesome players, but they never thought they'd get to do that themselves. So to provide that opportunity and to really steward what the Lord has for these Angels is something that clicked in our head really early on that, we're making a pretty cool difference.
I love that. And it's all about service and giving back, right? You get so much more than you give.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So maybe, Sean, you can tackle this next question. Let's see. You describe yourselves as the only undefeated baseball team on the planet. Can you explain what that means and why it matters?
Yeah, well, recently, 2 weeks ago, we just did our first collegiate event, which we can get into, but it was at Ole Miss. And Tanner had that D1 background, baseball, media day. And what's cool is everybody that steps on the League of Angels diamond is a winner. The Angels get to step onto a baseball field that they've only grown up watching or only hear about. And then the baseball players who are the buddies in this situation, they are in the lights and they're with the agents and they're doing all the behind the scenes baseball grunt work that a lot of people don't see. They think they just play 3 or 4 games a week and call it good. Well, we think that at a League of Angels experience, the Angels have the best time ever. We get to treat them like the all-stars that they are. But then the baseball players say, oh, this is why I fell in love with the game of baseball. And likewise, they get to share the game that they love with the Angels. It's just awesome back and forth. And then the fans, we didn't have fans before Ole Miss, and they showed up with signs and they're singing Sweet Caroline and cheering them on. And there was this, Oxford was amazing in itself. But we really think that everybody walks in not really knowing what to expect, and they leave with just the biggest, their hearts, exploding, and their smiles are all over their faces. It's awesome.
I love that. It's like Scrooge. Their heart grew 2 sizes too big, right?
Exactly.
That's right.
So what does a typical game day look like and feel like for your players?
So it depends on whether we're in Knoxville or if we're traveling. A typical event looks like a 2-hour event. The first hour, 45 minutes-ish, being more of an introduction, more of a skills instruction. It's funny, Sean said that people don't really know what to expect because it really is true. There's tees out there, they go out and hit and throw. And, I think a lot of the fans and even the athletes or volunteers that are there are like, wow, this is nice. They get the opportunity to. And I think their eyes get all big whenever we do start doing introductions and fog machines start going off and lights and all the speakers and all the theatrics. So the second half of the event is the game, we call it, where every hit's a home run, every Angel gets to bat. A lot of the volunteers and players that are volunteering there get to run around the bases with them and really just get to have a blast. It really is just a big party. So the event as a whole is a 2-hour day, but the Angels themselves get more of a skills instruction free for all, we like to call it. They get personal introductions through a tunnel and with all the lights, and then they get to play in a game where, like I said, every hit's a home run. We'll play a couple innings and then we usually have a nice little treat for them at the end.
That sounds amazing. What's the age range of your Angels?
Man, we've had people as young as 6 and as old as 72 come. So the age range is pretty wide.
Okay, that's great. Have you ever had someone that's really struggling to hit the ball, and then do you
We'll have
get
a
up?
couple, sometimes the pitcher will go a couple times, but I mean, everybody, he talked about people's eyes opening up when one kid, maybe the first kid, hits the ball out of the park. You're like, wow, there's actually something going on. So some of the Angels' last event, we're going up to coach. We're like, hey, I'm playing for you next year. I'm coming.
Yeah,
You guys, I don't think I could hit a baseball or a softball, so maybe you can teach me a thing or two. I
that's
might know.
right. You
still
might
learning.
surprise yourself.
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe with the tee. I could probably do it on the tee.
We've
So,
got those for you.
yeah, thanks. Do you have a favorite story of a player's dream coming true on the field? Can you think of anything?
Dream coming true. I think we see a lot of those, at least that emotion, come out of the Angels when they play with us. One of the coolest things that definitely sets us apart is, we went originally from calling ourselves an organization or a foundation to a ministry. And we don't do a gospel presentation, but we want to live the gospel, through our actions and how the event is ran. So before the event, when we're all said and good, we've started turning on some worship music. And in Ole Miss, we walked all the way around Swayze Field and people walked in, they said, wow, this feels different. But we've heard some pretty cool stories about, some Angels that might go home and they don't say anything, but when they step onto a baseball diamond with the League of Angels, they suddenly start talking or they're more comfortable. And, in Knoxville, where we're from, we've definitely built a good, I say fan base, but the Angels, they come up, we've got nicknames. Some of them are wearing Tanner's college jersey number on Sharpie on the back of their jerseys that we give them. So I think that just the openness to play and the hearts of everybody that walk in, people say it feels a little different. We're like, well, good. That's what we hope for. And we pray for.
Right.
I feel like that this could be expanded to other areas like music and art. And, there's just so many things that you think about, you dreamt of when
Right.
you were a kid, like maybe I wanted to be Tina Turner and be on stage.
Yeah.
Maybe that it's like a make-a-wish, right? You could make that wish come true. But there's so many different
Mhm.
ways that could be morphed into different
Absolutely.
for these kids. It's great. So how has being part of the League of Angels impacted the families of the players?
It's funny because with a lot of things, it varies, right? So we have some parents wanting, to come drop their angel off and they get to go on a date night. We just have a big party with their angel. But we also have, honestly, the majority, they just love to stay and see the smiles on everybody's faces and get to see the experience. Because even, talking to you, Sharon, it's like we can only say so much. We might be describing an orange, but it's an apple. So like we can give as much detail about what the experience actually holds, but when you're actually in the environment, it really is something special. So I think towards the beginning, we had a lot of families just super thankful that we could provide that opportunity to the angel and they would go on a date night. But now a lot of the times the families are getting involved, the families are taking pictures, especially when we were at Ole Miss. A lot of the parents stayed because they're like, only you think, special needs opportunity. I think 99% of the world, would love to see their kid in a college stadium playing a sport, right? That's just like the American dream, it seems like. And then to see your special needs individual who you thought wouldn't be possible for, it's super cool for us to provide that opportunity for them. So it's been nothing but positive feedback. We hope to keep it that way.
I love that. I love it. So people if our listeners want to see more of what you do you have a YouTube channel, or I know you have a website, and that is leagueofangels.org. Is that correct?
Yep. It's leagueofangels.org. And we post a lot of our content on Instagram, which is League of Angels _US. And so we post a lot of our content there. We do have some YouTube stuff up, but the majority is social media. You can check out all of our stuff there.
And you post your events online as well.
We do, yep, website and Instagram.
And most of your events take place in Knoxville, Tennessee, right?
As of right now, we'll see what the Lord wants to do.
Okay, all right. But if somebody's local and they want to go check you out, they can go there
Absolutely.
or contribute or help or whatever, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So, Sean, here's another question for you. I feel like I'm giving you the hard ones, but
All
that's
right,
okay.
let's see.
I'm throwing you the curveball, but you're hitting it still.
A good one.
What have the players themselves taught you about joy, resilience, or teamwork?
I think that it's so easy to be joyful. You know, we talk about joy as being a fruit of the spirit. And, you know, sometimes when I have a tough day, it's like, man, I wish I was happy. You know, joy comes from him and all you need to do is ask for it. And these kids, as soon as they see, well, now they see our faces and they start smiling, they give us a hug, you know, but every time they get up to bat and the music's playing and everybody's cheering them on, you know, it's just so easy to find joy, but then it's easy to love them. So we've really just tried to say, you know, as a team, I don't care what is going on with you right now, just ask for him to speak through us in our actions. And it really comes easy at a League of Angels experience.
Tanner, you want to answer that same question?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest way we get it wrong normally is not living in the present. I think your joy can get diminished if you start living in the past, living in the future, you know, especially with our internal team here, you know, getting in a sprinter van and heading up to Oxford. We really didn't know what to expect. All of our events are scripted out from A to Z. So whether it be the music or what we're going to say over the mic or just how the event's going to flow. So when you walk into something that we don't really necessarily know what it's going to look like, you have to be in the present. And the only way that your joy can get diminished from being in that League of Angels moment is, you know, trying to think about what's next or think about how we can get, you know, the past event or what went wrong or what went right. Like, let's just live in the present and try to give the best experience to these Angels that we can.
Yeah, no, that's good advice because you do find that people like to ruminate about mistakes they've made in the past, right? And then they stress about things that may happen or may not in the future, right?
Right.
But to be 100% present in what you're doing, that is where the joy is. You're absolutely right. I agree. Unless you're going through a dark time and then you've got to, you know, you might have to dig a little deeper, but you put your faith in God and he'll get you through it, right?
Absolutely.
So, Tanner, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in building and sustaining the league?
You know what? It's funny because we've gotten that question a lot, and every time I say really nothing. We haven't really had any problems because every single thing that pops up, it's either a learning experience or a pivot from the Lord, right? So we've had times where we have events completely planned out, Angels signed up, volunteers signed up, we've got the money there, and then you know, our team, whether it be me and Sean or somebody else in the leadership side of things, just like, hey, I feel like the Lord doesn't want us to do this event. Well, if we all get confirmation from that, we feel like we're hearing from the Lord, right? Then we'll cancel it. So we are completely 100% led by the Lord from the very beginning of putting together the paperwork and all the IRS stuff that comes along with it to right now of planning in the next event, going back to living in the present. You know, the next thing that's in front of us is what we're going to pray about and seek the Lord for. And then we're just going to get confirmation from that, listen to his voice, and then we'll just be obedient. So yeah, it sounds like a funny answer to say that we haven't had any problems, but the Lord's provided his hands over it. We're just going to keep being obedient to what he has for us.
Amen. How do you recruit volunteers, buddies, or supporters to make the games possible?
We've got an outreach team. So we've got some, I say kids, they're all our age, but we've got some friends that are on the team and they've hit up all the local high schools. We are in a very big college town. So we've had outreach from fraternities, sororities, and Greek life to say, hey, we want to participate for some community service events. But then they show up at the first one and they show up at the next one and the next one. Outreach in Knoxville has been pretty easy so far. Then on the flip side, when we went to Oxford, we had the Tim Tebow's Night to Shine crew take over and just say, we're absolutely for this. And our first meeting, they said, okay, and when you guys come back next year, and Tanner and I were like, whoa, like this is getting more serious than we expected. So outreach has not been that difficult so far.
You're finding it easy to find volunteers. People support your mission. That's great.
That's the goal. After we have a couple events, then it's word of mouth and it continues to grow. So that's why it was awesome that in Oxford we had a grounds team there. But I know you receive not because you ask not. So we'll pray about it and we have an outreach team that goes out.
I love that. Sports are often seen as competitive. You've reframed baseball as pretty celebratory. What does that shift do for players and communities?
Well, I think it really touches home for me with this question because I was in the situation where all the players that volunteer with us get to see baseball in a different lens. So our slogan is baseball for all. And, you know, you're growing up your whole life just really pressing and having pressure on you and the cameras and the whole 9 yards with just stress that comes with the sport. So to just really have that childlike joy when you step on the field is something that I think I'm super blessed that we are able to change the Angels families, major college or professional athlete that gets involved, and the fans that come see us. So it's a really cool business frame to be able to touch everyone who's involved, even if they're watching or playing. And just to see baseball in a different lens, because that is one of the majority of our goals is.
I love that. So Tanner, you played D1 baseball, and what happened? Did you just decide, did you have an injury, or did you decide baseball wasn't for you long term?
No, there was a lot of different complications that went into it that ultimately led me to leave the school I was at. And then when I came back home, I was going to go play somewhere else. I was getting recruited and looking at different spots. And then that's when the Lord put it on my heart to start the League of Angels. So it was a tough surrender to be like, okay, I'm going to step into what the Lord has for me. But at the same time, it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
And I asked that question because I think several of our listeners, if their goal since they were a little boy or a little girl is to play major league sports of any kind,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it doesn't look like that goal is going to be achieved. For you to then pivot and be so positive about it, I think says a lot about you, because a lot of people would be pretty depressed and disappointed, right? And because I know how much work goes into being an athlete, right? So I understand that kids are starting at 4 or 5 years old, t-ball all the way up. And maybe dad is really pressuring you I know a lot of dads that were really pressuring the
Yeah.
kids in the neighborhood to be the best of the best and to make all stars,
Yep.
right? So, and then you get to a certain level and you're like, okay, I'm probably not going to make the majors or even maybe the minors, right? So I'm going to pivot. There can be a period of time when you make that decision where you're really disappointed or you feel like you failed yourself or failed others around you maybe that have pushed you, right? So yeah, so I love how you're telling a story of, you were just called to make a change and you're taking your passion and your gifts and giving it to others. So that's a beautiful
Yeah.
thing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. A lot of people can get wrapped up, like we talked about at the beginning of it being your identity. And don't get me wrong, it was a tough transition and, obviously super tough on my parents and friends around me. But I don't want to say I handled it the best, but I also know that like everything like everything that happens in your life, you're responsible for, whether it's the outcome or how you react to it. So in that moment, I knew I could react in, the best way I could, which was surrendering it to the Lord. Obviously there's questions that pop up like why did God clear the whiteboard? It felt like in my life, but obviously that's why he's God and I'm not. So he took me and obviously shaped me into where I needed to be. We spent a lot of time just me and him together and to shape the League of Angels to what it is now. But yeah, no, it can definitely be a tough transition for somebody trying to find their calling.
Yeah, and to add to that though, I don't feel like we can always control our outcomes, but we can absolutely control how we react to them. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's the change, I think, because you're right. There's a lot that's out of our control. It's his control. So
Absolutely.
but we have to be able to control how we react to it, and I think you're reacting to it beautifully. So it may not have been so in the
Well, thank
beginning,
you.
but in the long run, sounds like you're doing great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. So, how do you think this model of inclusion through play could inspire other sports or organizations? Sean, you want to take that one?
Sure.
She's like, he's throwing me a fastball this time.
Yep, right down the middle. I think that at a League of Angels event, you can always count on seeing baseball and Jesus. So I think that model can be replicated anywhere. You just need the right heart posture behind it. We say over and over again, Jesus runs it. He's the creator of it. Well, we're just managers and stewards of something he's given us. So I think that inclusion, is important. And, if you do it the right way, again, with the right heart posture, and you're really just there to love and serve people who aren't treated as you and I are on a daily basis, most likely, I think that it can be done anywhere. And ideally, what we do in Oxford, Mississippi, is replicated through people's actions after that event to people who not even just special needs, but are less fortunate. Tanner and I will talk about the kid sitting at the lunch table at the cafeteria by himself. Like if we can inspire a change in our culture and people's outcome and their characteristics, we're all for it.
Yeah, that's where my passion is too. I want to reach the younger kids that feel so left out and so alone. I always say their uniqueness when they're in their adolescent years is what's getting them bullied in school, but it's what's going to make them great later on in life. So if they can get
Absolutely.
that period of time that's so difficult, yeah, but yeah, I want to touch that person too. that young person that feels so alone and left out. And it's really something, I just wrote a book recently, and it's really something that's fascinating to me because especially your generation and even younger, where we live in a society that's more connected than ever through technology. A lot of us are feeling a lot more disconnected than we've ever been, so, and isolated. So it's definitely something we
Hmm.
need. And so bringing them together in a game like baseball is so precious and important. So yeah. So tell me, Tanner, where do you see League of Angels 5 or 10 years from now?
Yeah, no, that's a phenomenal question, and I don't know. That I can only provide what the Lord has given me with the plans that He's put in my heart and in my brain. So He hasn't given me a 5 year to 10 year plan, so I can't provide one. But I can say that with us stepping into Oxford, I'm at Ole Miss. We would love to go stop by a couple other colleges. We'd love to potentially do a tour next year where we hit 4 or 5 in a row, 4 or 5 weeks in a row. But yeah, I'd love to give a 5 year plan because I wish I had one. But we're just going to keep following the Lord one step at a time. And there's a reason He gave me a lamp and not a flashlight.
Well, there, I like that quote. I like that quote. But even if you don't have one, okay, I'll ask you, Sean, what is your hope for it? Why don't we put it, why don't we do it differently?
Well,
What
we've
is your
spoken.
hope? Yeah.
It would be cool, how do we touch the most amount of angels? And that's the goal. So, there being now people in Mississippi that have participated in the League of Angels experience, does it look like them opening up a branch or just having a League of Angels event annually? And then can we get one out in California down there? You've got spring training, a lot of baseball down in your area. Does it look like, in the spring, League of Angels can come down south? So as Tanner said, we kind of had 5 year plans, but we don't know. Within 3 weeks at the end of last year, we got asked to go to Chicago and DC for things that didn't quite make sense, but it all ended up to work out for us, like meeting Coach Mike Bianco, for example. And, we can work on structure and make sure that the team's foundation is strong. But as far as 5 year plan, we just want to make sure we hear what his next week looks like for the League of Angels.
Very good. Do you have some professional athletes that are involved currently?
We do, yeah. So we have a program called the Angel Impact Program where professional athletes will give donations based off of their performance. For example, Cole Wilcox with the Tampa Bay Rays, he gives X amount of dollars for however many strikeouts he gets, and then it goes by month to month, and we're looking to grow that group as well. But we've got about 5 or 6 MLB guys that are involved right now. So we've been super blessed with that. And we also would love to go to a bunch of different MLB stadiums and host a League of Angels event. Obviously, that hasn't it's not what the Lord has planned for us right now, but at the same time, we're obviously open to it.
It'll get there. You'll get there. If
That's
someone
right.
listening feels moved, what are some concrete ways that they can get involved, whether as a volunteer, a donor, or a fan?
Well, we'll always welcome money. We found that was a hard ask, but more of an easy one. So donors, we're all for it. But listeners down in the Florida region, it would be cool if you're moved by it. Maybe see what it looks like to host the League of Angels down there. How can we touch the most amount of angels? And I think that's our goal.
Yeah, no, we tell everybody that with outreach comes everything. So anybody listening that either wants to be a volunteer or knows angels that want to get involved, or like you said, we get involved monetarily. Our hands are open, and we hope that we can steward what you provide the best we can.
All right, listeners, I know we have some contacts in the Sarasota area that maybe work or know somebody at the IMG Academy, which is a big baseball camp in the
Oh
area,
yeah,
and also have the Baltimore Orioles stadium here. So yeah, hopefully we've got some shout outs and connections out there that can help you make that happen.
yeah,
So,
please.
yeah, I think the new college, maybe it started met the athletic director. I think he started a new baseball program at New College, which is not far from where I am either. So we'll try
It's
to get you
awesome.
hooked up. That'd be fun.
Please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
So if that worked, just explain to me how that would look in terms of like the angels would be coming from this area, or would they be angels that you would be flying or busing down from Knoxville?
So we have an internal team of 5 people. So that the internal team of 5 or 6, depending on the size of the event, we will come to that given area. But obviously in the planning stages, it takes about a month and a half to 2 months. I would say probably 2.5 months to really plan a big event in a stadium. So that looks like everywhere from fundraising to getting volunteers to getting field access and event planning, and the Angels and volunteers as well. So we would basically partner with a given organization in that city, or just give an outreach to whoever wants to come and be an Angel and come be a player with us. And then the actual, if it, let's say it was the Orioles, the MLB players themselves would be the volunteers. And then we would just work with the facility crews to make the event, to really bring the League of Angels experience to that given stadium. And then our team of 5 or 6 would come down and host a sweet event. And obviously there's fundraising that goes into that as well.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Be a good
It's a
spring training.
blast.
Be a good spring training thing to do. We'll have to kind of put that out there and see if that's what we're meant to do here,
Absolutely.
right? Put that out there. And finally, in the spirit of joy of the hang, what's your personal joy of the hang moment when you're on the field with your team? Sean, you start.
I'll go back to our most recent event.
Was that another hard question?
That was good. No, that was
Yeah, that one wasn't that bad. More of a soft.
I really, the last event we had was in Ole Miss, and it was the first event with a designated spectator group. And when we walked out, Tanner and I kind of held our breath, said a little quick prayer, and walked out in the field. There were a couple hundred people there, but there were guys there that they looked like a fraternity group holding signs saying "We Heart," one of the Angels there. And we're like, oh my gosh, we had no idea what we were walking into. We knew that the people coming had no idea what they were walking into. And to see that, people were there to just cheer on these kids, like that one kid that might be sitting alone at a lunch table or just, doesn't get that experience most often, really brought joy to us. We're like, all right, now we run the event, and that's what we do, so let's do this.
I love it. I love it. Tanner, how about you? Do you have a joy of the hang moment?
I'm going to change it to moments, just because a lot of the same moments that happen within a League of Angels event is all about building relationship. And I think people have a lot of preconceived notions when they hear that a foundation is coming to town, and then 20-something people, like 20-year-olds, walk into a room. They kind of have this idea of what they think it's going to be. And then when not only do we get to give them a new experience in the nonprofit space in a League of Angels experience, but we're also sharing the gospel and blasting worship music over their $1 million stereo system. It just kind of raises some eyebrows, and we just get to build relationships that we get to cherish for longer than just a 2-hour event.
Love that. That's great. Was there any other thing you wanted to discuss before we close today? Sean, did you have anything? Do you want to expand on the collegiate partnerships, or?
I mean, if you want to have a League of Angels event, let's get on a call. We bring baseball and Jesus, so we'd love to talk partnerships.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. I'll get Debbie involved.
That's right. That's right. She better be listening to this.
She'll make it happen. If anyone can, Debbie.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah. Listeners, we have a mutual friend in common named Debbie, and I won't say her last name, but she is the one that connected us. So, yeah, she's amazing.
She knows enough people to make herself dangerous. That's the tagline.
That's her tagline? It should be.
Yep.
It's not.
Yep. That's her elevator speech.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you guys. Listeners, before we close, here's your joyful act for the week. Think of someone in your life who doesn't always get the spotlight. A coworker, a neighbor, a family member, maybe even a stranger. Take a moment to cheer them on. Send a text, clap for their small win, or simply tell them, I see you. Because just like League of Angels reminds us, everyone deserves to be celebrated, supported, and feel undefeated. So thank you, Sean and Tanner, for your time today. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate you.
All right. We'll say goodbye.